Okay, so this is just we're seeking some guidance because Mayor Susan, Deputy Mayor Liz and I will be attending a special general meeting of our GNZ next week where we'll be required to exercise a vote. Now, history, the Future of Local Government panel worked for about 3 years to come up with a Future of Local Government panel report on what is, in their view, an ideal scenario for the future of local government. And when this matter was discussed at the LGNZ conference in Christchurch, the resolution that came out of that meeting was that we would try and build a consensus position so that we could take that to the incoming government. So with that in mind, we've had Liz and I and Susan have attended 2 facilitated workshops in Wellington. It's fair to say that you'll remember that Auckland's not part of the LGNZ family anymore. So the views that are expressed in the paper that Susan circulated to you are exclusive of Auckland. So look, I put my public policy hat on and tried to view the paper as if I was the incoming government and what my reaction to this might be. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. There are things around, extending the local government term to 4 years and aligning it with central government, which gives councils a lot more time to pull together a long-term plan and actually, put it into action. There's a commentary around here around funding. There's really good stuff on things like more participatory democracy. A lot of stuff on localism. There's a lot to commend in this paper. If it has any downsides, and this is just my personal view, is I don't think it takes any regard to the incoming government and the change of political landscape, which is a significant concern indeed. It's quite heavily aligned to the last government's reform program. So that's one caveat. It's not factored in any of that stuff. I guess from a constitutional perspective, it's also recommending that by changing the Local Government Act, local government becomes a partner to the treaty. And that's okay to an extent, but I'm not sure that ratepayers and local government generally want to accept liability for treaty breaches. Traditionally, that's been a matter that's dealt with between the Crown and treaty partners. So, it's a very major constitutional step to put ratepayers in a position where they are subject to issues around redress. So there's a significant caveat there. There's also, in my view, something of a contradiction in the report where it's seeking to get a great deal of alignment between central government planning processes and strategy and budgets. And yet, on the other hand, it's really pushing for localism. And it sort of cuts to the core in terms of local government's place in the world. At the moment, we are not reliant on central government for a funding source, but money from central government will, of course, comes with purse strings. So on the one hand, we've got localism wanting to drive local decisions, but on the other hand, we're saying actually we need to partner with central government on strategy and get some aligned funding. So there's a bit of a contradiction in there. And inevitably, because of the appropriations process that central government runs, it's the minister that's accountable for that expenditure. So I'm not quite sure how we might pull that off with some big overarching planning process. Inevitably, councils plan for a lot longer terms than central government does. They're planning for one election cycle to the next, whereas we have 30-year infrastructure strategies, we've got 10-year plans. So trying to align those planning processes could be really difficult. I think that's probably all I should say at the moment. But look, just looking for your guidance in terms of, we'll hear debates for and against the paper's now broken down into sections, so we can vote for each section individually. But we're just looking for some discussion and guidance on, have we read the room right?
Yeah, that's a pretty fair summary, Gary. I guess a little bit of the background. Originally, the paper came out when I circulated it to you, and it was an all or nothing. There was some discussion had at various mayoral forums, particularly our own recently, about the concern that didn't enable flexibility, I suppose, in terms of if you had problems with one or two bits, you throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there's been discussion had at National Council, and they've agreed now to splice them into the five propositions. So that's showing some responsiveness to concerns expressed by mayoral forums. I think, yeah, look, it's hard to argue with some of the notions in there. I think it encapsulates a lot of our thinking and what we have been saying for some time. But I certainly have felt at times there's been a failure to consider, as you say, the landscape now, with again maintaining a long-term line and view as a sector, but really cognizant of the fact that we're missing, what is it, a quarter of New Zealand population being represented here, because Auckland's not at the table, and that really troubles me. So, significant player not having any input, just in terms of speaking or into that sector voice, I suppose. So, yeah, really interested to hear your thoughts. I've obviously heard from Roger and Marcus. I think you're the only two. Oh no, was it Claire? Came back. I can't remember, but it'd be really good just to have a steer. Ultimately, I guess we have to cast our votes at the special general meeting accordingly, but just keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. There was one more point that I just wanted to make before you open it for discussion, and that was there's a suggestion that local government, if local government is to be reviewed in light of the new sort of constitutional or aligned planning arrangements, that local government should lead that. And if you look at the history of local government leading reorganisation proposals, I don't think any of them have got past the gate. So I think that's possibly a little bit naive, and I think an incoming government would look at that and think, yeah, we really haven't got a track history that would support that.
Kia ora, Gary. And just for clarity for my whānau that might be watching online now or later, us not going with the redress stuff, that's purely about where central government do not drop down the resourcing for us to deal with that stuff at a local government level. Only because I know for those on watching, there are a considerable amount of Māori that look at local government as the little brother to what happens in Wellington. So they'll be looking at that connection of why aren't we committing to the treaty as a partnership in the bigger picture. So just making sure for them who might be watching, this is about central government who make these decisions about redress with iwi, but don't drop down the resourcing to local government who have to manage the settlements and what drops out of them. So, tēnā tātou.
Yeah, that's a really good and accurate point about it. I mean, my own view personally is we, as New Zealanders, we're all partners to the treaty. But as a local government, there is no funding mechanism to deal with matters of redress, and that is a Crown matter as it stands at the moment.
Yeah. So I read the material before, but I didn't send any comments through because it is actually pretty straightforward. There's nothing earth-shattering. But I really agree with both of you that it doesn't take into account the landscape now that we've got a new government. Yeah, so there's quite a few things that have been announced that could have a really big impact on some of these things. Yeah, so I'm not too sure what the strategy is, like wait and see. I mean, they do actually seem to be more willing to work with local government. and the fact that, you know, the C4LD people have actually been able to have a direct meeting and things like that, which I saw as a really positive move. Yeah, so, and a lot of the things that were in the review for the future of local government have come through as well. Yeah, so I just feel like it's a bit of a waiting game, really.
Roger.
Yes. Oh, little green lights come on. Yes, thanks, Gary. Basically, my views have not changed. You've seen my feedback? Has that been shared?
No.
Oh, but it's very similar to what you commented on, and I don't see any reason to change my views at this stage. I agree with Claire that again, we've got a very cloudy crystal ball to see what's going to come up. But there are some, I think, that I certainly would strongly support, and that's a change to a 4-year term. And actually, if I remember rightly, and I don't have the copy of what, but there was also a comment on the return of rates on GST on rates coming back. I mean, I've always, you know, rates are a tax. And to have GST on a tax, just to me, just doesn't make any sense. So I think that should come back. But a lot of the comments that you made were in my submission, so I leave it as is with that.
Yeah, look, from my own perspective, I'm very cynical about local government and central government's interactions. In 10 years in this, sitting around this table now, my recollections back to the last national government where they basically didn't want to know, certainly didn't want to know about the funding changes that were recommended back in 2013 or 12. That was an awful lot of work went into it, and we got one word answer from John Key, no, and we were moved on, even though, like, so, you know, from me, look, you three, you all read the room that you're in at the time, and you will make the best choices for the people in our district, I have no doubt. So go for it and good luck.
Yeah, just picking up on what Dharma and others have said too, to me, you can't be a little island left at risk to treaty settlements. That's not what councils are set up for. So yeah, there's no way ratepayers would want any risk around that or any council.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, there's no nothing kind of new, I guess, that